Hello everybody, here we are today. We're doing our season preview for the Montreal Canadiens, talking about why the Habs could be so exciting this year. Now before we get started with it, please make sure to subscribe if you're new to me or hockey, whatever the case may be. That being said, let's get on into it. So last season, Montreal finished with 76 points and missed the playoffs for a third straight year. And it seems like the shine of their 2021 Stanley Cup final run may have worn off a little bit. But I think over the past 2 years especially, what this team's been able to do in terms of improving has been good. As in 2022, they had 55 points, and they've been able to jump up 21 points in 2 years. That's pretty good in my book. And then this offseason, I think, was good for them in terms of the early draft and then what we saw with a big addition. So for a side that already feels like, oh, we keep improving, maybe things will get better for them, it feels like it could be even more optimistic. And this is a team I've been really excited to do their season preview for a bit now. So with all this kind of being hyped up early on, what are some storylines for Montreal for this season? The first is how will Patrick Laine do in year one. Laine is a player we've talked about a lot, especially in recent videos, talking about teams that he could get traded to. Montreal was one of those, by the way. And then, of course, too, we see him get traded to Montreal, and that's kind of a funny thing there. But he is now out of Columbus, and this is probably a good thing for him. About a week ago, he was shipped off from the Jackets, and this is a guy that I just think needed a new environment. Things weren't working out in the locker room for him, and we've talked about it extensively. At this point in his career, I would say that he's probably in the best place that he's been. I'm not talking about in terms of being competitive, as those Winnipeg teams are probably the most competitive out of the three teams that he's been on so far. But with a team that's younger, where there's maybe a little bit more patience, Martin St. Louis maybe having a better understanding about where he's at, Laine might be in a better spot to go out there and perform. And that's exactly what Montreal wants him to do. They brought him in to be this goal scorer for them, as they were a side that desperately needs goal scorers. They had 3 players last season. They finished with 20 goals or more. Third place was Juraj Slafkovsky with 20. Then, of course, Nick Suzuki and Cole Caulfield were 1 and 2. Your expected 1 and 2. They were 27th in goals for per 60. They were 29th in expected goals for per 60, meaning they were a team that didn't score a lot of goals and they weren't expected to score a lot of goals, and are in a spot now where maybe they can afford to give some younger guys a little bit more of a break, as they have a proven goal scorer brought into the team. Now, Laine is an interesting case because he hasn't been a mainstay in the lineup since the 2018-19 season, since the last time that he played over 70 games in a year. But I do feel like this is going to be a nice breakout year for him, or at least a redemption story for Laine, as I am going to be positive and say that he has his first 30-goal season since that 2018-19 season. Is he going to go out there and have his first 50-goal year? I'm not going to get that bold, but I do think he's going to alleviate pressure for top guys like Suzuki and Caulfield in terms of being those goal scorers. They're still going to have to go out there and perform, but I think for Laine in year one, I'm hoping he can become a fan favorite. And I forgot to throw in there too that he is only 26 years old, so he doesn't exactly seem like an old guy, but he's got that experience that you're feeling pretty good about, with the potential to play long-term for the team. So yes, another positive there that we'll throw in for Laine. Now, the second storyline that we're going to talk about here is whether or not the team will look better down the middle. When we look at Montreal last year, they dealt with a lot of injuries, a lot more than some other teams. They had nearly 400 man games lost, and a lot of that especially was their centers. Looking at guys like Christian Dvorak, he only played 30 games, and then Kirby Dach, who played 2. Now, looking at Dvorak, he's kind of an interesting guy. He had a good shooting percentage last year, didn't settle for bad shots, but also only had 9 points, and was not good analytically on both ends of the ice. So there's that. But at the same time, too, this is a player that's played at nearly a 50-point pace before, is a experienced NHL player that was brought in from Montreal, or to Montreal, and they're hoping maybe he can alleviate things, as he's good off the draw too, so another kind of added bonus. As for Kirby Dach, last year was supposed to be a big year to see what his development was supposed to be. But then, of course, he only played 2 games, which is unfortunate because in that very, very small sample size of 26 minutes, things look really good for Montreal with them out there on the ice, as he outshot teams 17-11, and they outscored teams 3-0. Looking at all this, he actually had a 72% for expected goals for percentage, meaning that a lot of the chances were in favor of the Habs, and that's exactly what you want to see for Kirby. Not saying that we can look at this wholeheartedly and say that this 26 minutes is an indication of how this year will go for him, as he is coming back from an injury, and that was a very, very small sample size. But at the same time, too, if Dvorak is able to have a bounce back year, be good off the draw for you, like you said, and get those good chances, and have a guy like Dach that is comfortable with taking shots anywhere from the ice, have another good start to the year and build off that and bounce back from that recovery, you could be set down the middle. Although, of course, we're looking at things and seeing how they'll all play out, and know that things could look entirely different in terms of the lineup and how and where guys will play. Now, the third and final storyline is talking about whether or not Martin St. Louis is starting to feel more pressure now. St. Louis has been the team's head coach for 3 years. He will be entering his 3rd full season this year. Is a guy that's been around for a minute now, and the team hasn't been particularly great with back-to-back seasons where they finished with the worst spot in the Atlantic Division, so 8th place, and this is a side that's not been able to go to the playoffs. And this is really all unfortunate after that 2021 Cup run. We were thinking maybe things are going to be great going forward, and they haven't necessarily been that way. So we're looking at this and seeing a guy that has been back-to-back years where they are dead last in the division, seeing a team that isn't necessarily close to the playoffs and saying, are they in a spot now where St. Louis could be fired? The answer is no. I mean, he is very safe. I do think the pressure is probably building a little bit more as they are seeing a little bit more of those expectations arrive a little bit, especially with the arrival of Line A. But in terms of job security, he probably feels relatively safe, as there's a couple of reasons for that, really three that I feel like kind of stick out here, and probably even more besides that. The first one being the team ended up putting out an option for him, so he's going to be under contract for the next 3 seasons. It was a 2-year option, so they view like he's going to be there for the next 3 years. That's a good thing, and there's other reasons as well. He's from Quebec. We know Montreal is basically different from every other NHL franchise, as they have the connection there, the culture, the language, all that, and with him being able to speak French, that's a big deal. Kind of a nice fact too that he also had a good NHL career. So with him doing the option, with him being from there, with him having a long and sustained and good NHL career, with the team improving, with the team looking like they're going to be even better this year, I think that he's going to be pretty safe. I don't think he's worried unless they had a really bad run, or maybe they went winless in 10 games or something like that. But at the moment, if they are able to be about 70-something points or more and build off this, or even kind of stay where they're at, I don't really see him getting fired. And I would certainly say that for right now, he's not on the hot seat. So overall, what are my thoughts on the Montreal Canadiens? Well, this is a team where we already feel like what we know about them to be true. It's probably going to continue to be true. They're a young side that has playoff aspirations and wants to continue to step up in the standings. And I think one of the good things for this side is they have a ton of young talent that isn't even in the NHL at the moment that could be there within the next year or two that could continue to propel them forward. Like we've already said, nice to see a great year for Uri Slafkovsky. We've already talked about, again, with Line being brought in, having Caulfield and Suzuki, etc. You're starting to feel a little bit better for them, but at the moment, do I see them being a playoff team? The answer to that is no. It's still not going to change. I'm not loving the situation in net, and I know that there's a lot of excitement about the young blue line that Montreal could be having here soon, but I still want to see how things will go going forward, and I think in general they are not within striking distance of the top teams in their division. And with other teams being out there in the Atlantic alone that already look like they want to be better than the Habs, I'd say that maybe for Montreal the goal would be not to finish last in the Atlantic this year, maybe get 7th. I'm not even saying that it could be a bad year, as this division looks pretty deep, as we talk about every division looking deep seemingly, but if they could go out there and get 82 or 83 points, even if they did finish, 8th or 7th in the division, that's not a problem to me, as they are taking a step forward and they could be better the year after that. And that's kind of where I also see Martin St. Louis being safe. If they went from 83 points to 87 and then they jumped up to 92 and then whatever, they just kept kind of going, they'd eventually get to the playoffs. You know what I'm saying here? So for the Habs, this year, again, feels very good. It's not the team from like the 2021-22 side where it just didn't go very well. This should go better, and I think in terms of expectations versus what's actually going to happen, they're going to be pretty good compared to what the expectations were 2021-22 season versus what actually happened. That was bad. This should be better. Anyway, what are your thoughts on the Montreal Canadiens for this season? Let me know down below in the comments. Also, please make sure to like this video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you're new. Everybody stay safe. Have a great night. And you love hockey, all right. Goodbye, Brigadiers and Brigadettes. This is your captain signing off. Have a great night.